Dear viewer, welcome to our lesson of social studies. I am John Kokazomoding and I will be taking you through this discussion that we are going to have. I request you draw your attention to this lesson. Get a pen, a paper, a book, so that you can be able to jot some important information that you will be storing in your diary. We are going to look at a subtopic that is, a topic responsible living in the East African environment, which means in this topic, we are basically going to look at us, the humans, as we interact with the environment. Of course, we need to note that the environment is not something new to us who are in primary 6. We began learning about environment right away from the downer classes. But before we go into details of this lesson, these are some of the words that we need to get used to in this lesson. We must be able to understand them very well at the end of this lesson. One is the word environment itself. You need to take serious note of this word. Sometimes it disturbs us. There is a silent N when we are writing environment. Then the other word is reforestation. We have deforestation, agroforestry, we have pollution, depletion, conservation, fragmentation, then we have consolidation, and others that we shall not be able to put all here. We are going to be understanding these words as we come across them. Still in line with the environment, we shall, in the previous classes, we say environment simply means man's surrounding. Man's surrounding, which means environment is the surrounding of man. Now, when we say environment is the surrounding of man, we are looking at things that are around man. This environment can be classified into two. We shall have the environment which is made up of living things. We call it biological environment. Then we have that of those things which do not have life. We call them non-living things. We call that one physical environment. Now, things that have life, we look at things like animals, then birds, insects, very many of them, all those things are with us. Then those without life, of course, we know these are things that do not breathe. For example, the mountains, and even others that are made by human beings. Of course, we also have those that are made by human beings. For example, a house is there, it's around us, desks, tables. If I ask you, you can also name others that you're having at home there. There are very many of them. So all those ones form the environment. Now, one thing we need to note is that this environment, we are the ones who are to take care of it. So as we are living in this environment, we are bound to either promote it or spoil it. First, we are beginning with promoting. We have what we call environmental protection. Environmental protection. This simply refers to the proper ways of using environment, proper ways of using our environment, which means ways which conserve or which promote the environment. On the board there are a few of them. One, we have what we call afforestation. Afforestation. Could you be knowing the definition for afforestation? If you have forgotten, then we are going to define it together. Afforestation means growing trees in an area which did not have them. In simple understanding, planting of trees where they did not exist. As simple as that. Then the other one is its opposite, reforestation. Reforestation, meaning we are repeating, meaning that there were trees but were cut. So we shall say that reforestation is the planting of trees where they have been cut. Or sometimes we shall say reforestation is the replacement or is the replacing of the cut down trees. Here we are planting trees in an area which had them or that they were cut. So that is the difference between the two. Then we have the third way of conserving or promoting or protecting our environment. We have what we call agroforestry. Agroforestry is the growing of trees and crops on the same piece of land. Then we have bush fallowing. Bush fallowing, take serious note of the spelling, fallowing. This simply means the leaving of land, or you give land rest. For example, if you have been using maybe an area, if you have been cultivating on certain land, time will come when you need to first allow it rest, give land time to rest. That is what we call bush fallowing. Of course, when that one is done, you will find that this land is able to regain its fertility. The vegetation will grow again from it in a nice way, and it will be again fertile. Land will not lose its fertility at that time. Next, we have what we call crop rotation. You may find that you might be like, hey, is this science? Is this? These two subjects integrate. What I mean is, we have some other issues that are common in them. So we have what we call crop rotation. The very way we define it in science, the very way we're also going to look at it in this context. Crop rotation means growing different crops on the same piece of land. For example, if right now you have grown maybe cereals, for example, like millet, you will find that in the next season, a farmer will not again put the cereals, but can bring another type. For example, one can bring legumes. I hope you know what I'm talking about when we talk about legumes. These are, we also call them leguminous crops. Those are crops with root nodules that we know will help in fixing nitrogen into the soil. And by that, it increases on the fertility of the soil. So that is in crop rotation, growing different crops on the same piece of land. Then we have what we call terracing. Of course, these ones are ways of controlling soil erosion. We have terracing, we have contour plowing, we have strip cropping, and very many. All these ways, all these practices lead to the protection or conservation of our environment. Now, what are the advantages of having such practices? Advantages of proper farming methods. One, a farmer is able to get high crop yields. A farmer gets high crop yields. So for us, we are saying it leads to high crop yields. Two, it helps to break the life cycle of pests and diseases. For example, if a farmer had grown, like I was saying, a farmer had planted cereals, so you'll find that there are some crops, there are some pests rather, that are for certain crops. If these pests were for cereals, now when cereals are removed, when they put another crop, you'll find that they are not able to survive with that crop. So that is what supports the point we are having here. It helps to break the life cycle of pests in the garden. Then three, it helps to control soil erosion. It helps to control soil erosion. Of course, when we talk about erosion, we are looking at the washing away of that topsoil by the erosion agents. Then we have it conserves the natural beauty. The word is natural. It conserves the natural beauty of our environment, which means that when we protect our environment, for example, we are not cutting the trees, we are protecting wetlands, you will find that the natural beauty of our environment is maintained. We have what we call 5 R's. This one supports the conservation or the proper use of the environment. The 5 R's, one, we have reuse. We have reduce, we have recycle, return, and refuse. Which means that when we do these practices, we shall be able to conserve the environment. How? Reuse, meaning that if you have something, keep on using it such that you don't again bring others and you might end up having very many of them wasted. Then reduce, this one you try to avoid doing it. Then recycle, this means you put what has been used into use. For example, after using, sometimes you drink soda, and after drinking the soda, you throw the bottle, not knowing that that bottle, instead of it littering the compound, it can be used again to make other good products. Then return, which means what you used, you can take it back, and finally refuse. So these are the ways, these are the 5 R's that support the environmental protection or proper use of our environment. Still, apart from the 5 R's, we can also preserve our environment by using what we call other alternative sources of energy. We have our heading on the board. We have alternative energy use. Now, what we mean by alternative energy, alternative meaning another one, apart from the other one, you can bring another way, another source. So here we are saying alternative energy use means the use of other energy sources instead of wood fuel. Of course, we need to note that most of us in East Africa, in Uganda, we always use fuel which is from the vegetation. For example, when you look at home, you'll find that when you are preparing meals, we are using charcoal stoves. Of course, when you use charcoal stove, we are using charcoal. If not, we are using, when we go to mostly in rural areas, people use firewood. And we also have sawdust. So all these are from vegetation. So you will find that using or depending on the vegetation will affect the environment. So what happens is we shall now bring other sources or other energy sources instead of wood fuel. We have understood the meaning of wood fuel. We are saying this is the energy which is got from firewood or from vegetation. And we have given the examples: firewood, charcoal, sawdust. Before we move, the use of this wood fuel has effects in the environment. First of all, you will find that using this will pollute the environment. Like you are using charcoal, using wood, firewood, you find that there is a way, there is some smoke can come and will pollute the environment. Two, of course, since these ones are got from the vegetation, you will find that it spoils or it leads to more cutting of trees for this. For example, we are using firewood, charcoal, it has got done. Again, people have to continue making it, cutting trees, and you will find it will be affecting the what? The vegetation. So that is how the use of wood fuel is a threat to our country, to our region, that is East Africa. Now let's understand which are these other energy sources that we can use instead of us depending on wood fuel. One, we have what we call solar energy. Solar energy, this is got from the sun. You will find a solar plate is put up on the roofs of the houses such that they can trap that energy that will be laid and it will be used by people. So instead of you depending on wood fuel, one can use solar. And you find that with solar, there is nothing like, again, pollution. There is nothing like you cutting a tree. The sun is always there. It appears in the morning, it sets in the evening. So the sun is always safe. So we have that as using solar energy. The other source is what we call thermal energy. Thermal, this is got from burning fossils. From fossils. Then we have biogas. That is from garbage and animal wastes. It can be turned into energy. Then we have hydroelectric power or hydroelectricity. This is the one which you get from, just get to be short as HEP, but we get it from the fast flowing water. That is where the machines are built and the energy is generated that we can use instead of wood fuel. Then lastly, we have what we call geothermal energy that is generated from the hot springs. So when we use these other alternative energy sources, you will find that our environment, our vegetation will be preserved, not destroyed. So we are looking at the importance of using other sources of energy. The other ones that we have finished to list. How is it important? How is it good? One, it helps to keep the environment clean. like we are understanding solar, we are understanding hydroelectric power. So you find that these are resources that do not need you to, again, use fuel, wood fuel. So the environment is clean. Just matter of you turning the switch on and you are good to go. 2, it reduces on tree cutting, and it reduces on the cutting down of trees for wood fuel. So this one is also another benefit. Then 3, it improves on the climate of an area. When we were in the previous class, we were understanding how vegetation influences climate, or how vegetation affects the climate of an area. You will find that an area which has got thick vegetation will influence the formation of rain that will modify the climate. So for that point, we are saying using other sources of fuel or energy other than wood fuel will help to modify the climate. How? The vegetation will be left, forests will be left, that will help in the formation of rain. And of course, we know that is the type of rain that we call convectional rainfall. Then the other one is, it helps to preserve some plant species for future use. We need to note that if, for example, people are to be left to cut trees for wood fuel, then you will find that they might exhaust some of the tree species that would be used in the future or in the nearby future. And find that with the time, people will be talking as a story. We used to have a mahogany tree, we used to have a mutuba tree, but at that time it will not be there because it was cut. So using other energy sources other than wood fuel will help to preserve some plant species. And of course, we shall also be able to note that it will help to conserve the natural beauty. We have not added it here, but we can have it. It helps to conserve. Like I said, you have to be with your book, so you can add it somewhere. It helps to conserve the natural beauty of the environment. This one comes in a way that the trees will not be cut, and that is vegetation. Next, we are going to look at the opposite. The other time we are looking at environmental protection, and we said this refers to the proper use of the environment, ways that promote the environment in an area. Now here is the opposite. We are going to look at environmental degradation. The one is degradation. Now, environmental degradation, we are having very many ways of degrading. We can have swamp degradation, we can have environmental degradation. So we need to understand that degradation comes from the word degrade, which means lowering the quality of something. In this case, when we are asked of environmental degradation, this simply means the lowering of the quality of the environment. As simple as that. Environmental degradation means the lowering of the quality of the environment. This one comes as a result of people misusing the environment. That's why we can also define it as the misuse of the environment. In the case the other one is difficult, you can simply say environmental degradation is the misuse of the environment. Which means we need to understand which are the ways through which people misuse the environment. Or how do people lower the quality of the environment in places where they live? One, we have people practicing what we call deforestation. Like we defined this at the beginning of our lesson. No, we have not defined this. We defined afforestation, sorry. Now, deforestation, we are looking at cutting of trees on a large scale. The cutting down of trees on a large scale. Of course, when people cut trees for various reasons, as we shall be looking at them in the next minutes, we shall be looking at why or what prompts people to cut down trees. Why do people cut trees? We shall be looking at that. And I know you must be knowing around 4 reasons or even more. So deforestation, cutting the trees, will lead to the spoiling of the environment. 2, mining. Now, mining, we simply define it as the extraction of minerals from where they exist. Now, before the mineral is extracted, for example, if they say we have got, there is a mineral in this area, but you'll find that on the surface there is vegetation growing. So there is no way one can push the hand to pull the mineral. That one cannot happen. So what happens? People have to first begin by destroying the vegetation, which is on the surface of the earth, such that they now begin digging the mineral out. So mining leads to environmental degradation. 3 is what we call industrialization. Industrialization comes from the word industry, which means here we are looking at an area becoming industrialized, in that there are very many industries set up in an area. The land is needed. If a forest has been in an area and now there is need to have industries built there, you will find that that one will result into a destruction of that vegetation in that area. Then the other one is what we call overgrazing. This is a very common word, a very common term to us, right away from the previous classes. Overgrazing, we are looking at having rearing too many animals on the same piece of land. You will find that the animals will end up eating up all the vegetation in that area, and the land is left bare, exposing it to erosion agents. That one now leads to the spoiling of the environment in that area. Of course, that's what we call environmental degradation. 3 is overfishing. This is done on water bodies. Remember, we say the environment, we are looking at all the surrounding of man. So overfishing can also be done on water bodies, and it will spoil the environment there. Then we have swamp drainage. Swamp drainage, we look at the removal of water or reduction of water from a swamp. Removal of water from the swamp. Of course, this one has reasons. If I ask you, why do people drain water from the wetland? One, someone needs to get land where he can grow his crops. So he needs to drain water first from the wetland and he grows the crops. 2, people want a road to pass on that wetland. So that one also brings swamp drainage. 3, people are going to construct industries, factories, people are going to construct houses, and very many reasons. All that leads to swamp drainage, including using that water for making bricks. And of course, when swamp drainage is done, it brings environmental degradation. It will have lowered the quality of the environment. The other one is what we call bush burning. Bush burning simply means setting fire to burn a bush, or burning of bush, or bushes. This one is also, this one directly affects the vegetation, because it destroys the vegetation in an area and automatically resulting into environmental degradation. We have overcultivation, that is overusing land, growing land without leaving the land to rest. Overusing land season after season. Same land is being used without giving it time to rest, without bush following. As we said in the beginning of our lesson, we understood bush following. I'm sure you still remember it. So that one will also lead to the degradation of the environment. Then lastly, we have over lumbering. In simple terms, lumbering, we define it as the selective cutting of mature trees for timber. You need to bring those words. Selective cutting of mature trees, and the reason is for timber. Purposely, that is what we call lumbering. So sometimes it can be done on a large scale, and you will find that it will now lower the quality of the environment. Automatically, that will bring environmental degradation. So like I said, when we are looking at deforestation, we say deforestation is the cutting down of trees on a large scale. Now, in our heading, we are going to understand, why do people cut down trees? I say you can't be having around 4 or more reasons as to why people cut down trees. let's compare whether what you have is what I have, or what you have is missing here, then we shall act, in case it's correct. 1, people cut down trees to get wood fuel. And when we were talking about wood fuel, we said wood fuel includes things like the energy like firewood, don't forget. We said it includes the firewood. We have charcoal. I want when you are asked to write examples of wood fuel, don't forget firewood, charcoal, and we had sawdust. These are the examples of wood fuel. So don't forget this. So people can cut down trees because they want to get firewood. The other mistake that you always make, when we are asked, why do people cut down trees? And you will find someone says, 1, people cut down trees to get firewood. Then, which is correct. Then the second point, someone says, people cut down trees to get wood fuel. You will find that you have already talked about wood fuel as firewood. So what the examiner will, what the person marking your paper will do, is to give you 1 mark instead of the 2, because you are talking of wood fuel, which is already what? Firewood. So we need to be serious on that when we are answering. The other reason is people cut down trees to get timber. Of course, this timber can be used in carpentry for making very many products out of it. Then we have people cutting down trees to get land, to get space. Like I was explaining, people clear a forest, for example, for settlement, and for that it brings what we call forest encroachment. To encroach means you go beyond where you are supposed to end. If a forest is in an area, we find that people always keep on cutting some trees as they enter deep into the forest, and at the end you will find they are finished clearing the whole forest. That is very, very dangerous to the environment. It degrades the environment. Then the other reason is to get land for farming. This one is obvious, self-explaining, meaning that these people want to use, if a forest has been in an area, they cut the trees down so that they can be able to get that space and they grow crops. Instead of the forest being there, they can use that area for growing crops, which would be okay, but it has also the negatives. It's not good. Lastly, to get land for road construction. Like I was explaining earlier on, a road is to be put in an area. So there is no way they can put a road. For example, there is a forest, and at the same time people have to put the road there. There is no way a road can be put on the forest. No. What happens, they will have to clear the forest, they cut the trees so that they get the space where that road is going to be put. So those are the reasons as to why people cut down trees. And the others that we have not put, and I'm sure you have them which are correct. Next, we have dangers of cutting trees. When people do this, of course they have their reasons. Now there are dangers. Why do people, what are the disadvantages of cutting down trees? 1, it leads to desertification. The word is desertification. When we see the word desertification, you will find that desertification comes from the word desert. It comes from the word desert. Therefore, desertification means an area turning into or beginning to experience desert conditions. For example, an area which has been receiving reliable rainfall because of the presence of the vegetation. Now the vegetation is no more to help in rain formation. What happens? The conditions go worse. That is becoming now receiving little rainfall and bringing now the desert conditions. That's what we call leading to desertification. 2, cutting down trees leads to soil erosion. Remember the vegetation, these trees will help to bind the soil particles together. Now they are being destroyed, so the soil is exposed to erosion agents. Then it leads to landslides. This one is always common in mountainous areas, landslides. Then we have cutting down trees, spoiling the natural beauty of the environment. Of because this vegetation always makes a place beautiful, nice looking, natural beauty. So when it's destroyed, the area looks in a funny way. That's what we call, it spoils the natural beauty of the environment. Then this one says it leads to exhaustion or depletion. It leads to exhaustion of resources. Cutting trees leads to exhaustion of resources. Then lastly, it leads to destruction of homes for wild animals. Of course, we need to know that these trees are habitats for these wild animals. For example, in a forest, we have very many animals living in it. We talked about Gwindi, impenetrable forest, that we say it inhabits very many mountain gorillas. Imagine if that forest is to be destroyed. Where are these gorillas going to be? So that one is a threat to them. So they will be displaced. So we can say cutting down trees leads to the displacement of wild animals. Of course, the displacement comes after their homes being destroyed. Just like you, if someone came and put your house down, he will find that he may not have where to sleep. Maybe you will have to go now to the streets to look for where to sleep, or any other place now, but not again your home. So it's not good that. Now, the last subheading we are going to have is, how do we reduce the rate at which people cut down trees? That is, how to reduce the rate of deforestation. Now, one, if we are to remember that we talked about using other alternative sources of energy, that can be our first answer. So we can say, one, by using other alternatives, by using alternative sources of energy, by using alternative sources of energy. Space is not enough, we shall be discussing others. By using other alternative sources of energy. For example, we said here we can use solar energy, we can use hydro, geothermal, biogas, instead of running to cut trees to get wood fuel. So that one is one of the ways we can reduce. The other one is by teaching people on the dangers of cutting down trees. Some people cut trees because they are not aware of the dangers. So by encouraging people, by sensitizing people on the dangers of cutting down trees, it can also help to reduce. Then we can also reduce the cutting of trees by using these charcoal stoves that help to save charcoal. We have these charcoal stoves which can use just a little piece of charcoal, few, and you find the food is ready. Not the other ones that you have to put a heap of charcoal for the food to get ready. So even that can be another way that this deforestation can be reduced, because instead of you now finishing your charcoal very fast, you run for another sack, you will find that you will still be having this one, you are still using it slowly. So for that, we shall have come to the end of our lesson. Thank you so much for being part of this lesson, and always keep on subscribing for more lessons. And in case you don't understand some area well, you can go back and re-watch it so that you will be understanding the lesson. Keep yourself safe from the pandemic. As we know very well, it is very serious. When you are getting out, make sure you wear your mask properly, and when you get back home, please wash your hands very well. We want you alive. May God bless you.